So the series, you heard the call. Let's talk to the man that made the call. Live on the live now, Mr. Ian Eagle. Thank you so much for a few minutes of your time, my friend. Set the scene for us, because I was playing Phantom Defense in my apartment, watching TV. I got my hands on my knees. I'm trying to figure out how this game's going to end. And Aaron Gordon, for the second time now in this NBA postseason, delivers for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I've played it over and over again in my own head. And I think back, obviously, it had to sequence out exactly the way that it did for Denver and Oklahoma City. I know they were asked about it after the game in real time. I was just questioning why so quickly on the fouls. I understand the strategy, of course. If you want to foul up three, not allow a team to take a three, we've seen it time and time again. But to do it on two occasions with very little time coming off the clock, one out front with Jokic and then the other, Gordon, in the backcourt, Denver makes its free throws. Oklahoma City misses its free throws, as we know, with Holmgren, and then that leaves an opening for Denver. I'm still not sure, and there are only two people that know for certain, Russell Westbrook and Aaron Gordon. Were they under the impression that the team was down by 2 or down by 1?
Right.
Because both approached it with the idea of a three-pointer in mind. It works out. Gordon, who's worked so diligently on that shot through the years, makes it. But keep in mind, there's still time on the clock. It's not a game winner until it's 0-0. So even the Williams fling at the end, there's a moment, I'm sure, for Nuggets fans, you included, where you're like, oh, man, don't go in. That's not how this is going to end, is it? And obviously Denver takes game one. I understand the thought process for Nuggets fans. The mentality is us against the world, because you're right. Everybody came into this series favoring the number one seed in the Western Conference.
And I got to tell you, yesterday, everyone except me was saying that, the Thunder get this one because the Nuggets are going to be tired.
Right.
Because of they keep playing every 48 hours. Where do you come down on the tired thing, especially now, and then the rest or rust thing for the Thunder, who were off for 9 days before this game?
Yeah, I looked up some numbers. Second half of back-to-backs this year, Denver was an NBA best 12-4. And when we talked to David Adelman prior to the game, I brought up that stat to him, and he said there's no proof of anything other than the fact that he believes this is a really resilient team that responds to any kind of stressors or pressure. And in fact, he remembered amidst those 16 games that they lost games on the front end that they probably should have won against teams that may not have measured up on paper to what Denver would consider a quality win. So it's funny how a coach's brain works. He applauded his team for what they did during the season, and he said, yes, they were aware of that stat, but he was also aware of the fact that the front end of those back-to-backs were not always perfect. Look, I think it's always convenient based on results. Last year, we were in a similar situation from a broadcast standpoint. We had the Dallas-Oklahoma City series. OKC had swept through the first round, and they had extra time off. And they took care of business in game one against Dallas, and Mavericks had played a 6-game series against the Clippers. So when we talked to Mark Daigneault about it yesterday, he said, look, we've approached it with a certain mentality, keeping the guys engaged, being smart in how we used these 8 days in between games. You're right. They played on the 9th day in between the end of the first round. I just think it's often recency bias. It's whatever the result is, and then we jump on that narrative as, hey, they were rusty, they didn't come out.
Right.
Look, there were times where they looked like themselves. They were up by 14. They had a sizable lead late in this game, and if not the perfect storm for Denver happening the way that it did, we probably are not having this conversation today.
Ian Eagle, our guest, Dover and Cecil, Anilo Piro in for Josh Dover here on Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. So we have seen this play out ever since Michael Malone got fired, right? Like that took the NBA world by storm, the sports world by storm. And we saw it a couple of times, but it was front and center last night. Coach Jokic grabbing the whiteboard, drawing up plays, X's and O's, telling players where to stand. I mean, Break that down for me a little bit. How did you see Nikola, not only as a player but as an influencer, help will his team to victory last night?
Yeah, I think what ends up happening a lot in sports, when we're not privy to what happens behind the scenes, we just can speculate. And the speculation has been that Nikola Jokic has been more front and center in terms of leadership, even when Michael Malone was still the head coach, that he's just more comfortable voicing his opinion and being demonstrative when necessary. But then when you actually see it like we did, that wasn't the only piece of video, by the way, that one sequence during the timeout. There were others as well,
right,
where he has the full attention of everybody on the team. Obviously, he's a three-time MVP. He's someone that everyone around the basketball world respects for how he produces and how he carries out his business and how he conducts himself. So that goes without saying that his teammates are going to pay attention. But it felt like another level because of the way that he was motioning and just that brief little moment in time where you get some insight into what's happening. Look, part of it is clearly connected to the fact that David Adelman is the interim coach, and this is his first taste of doing it at this level, and maybe Jokic feels the need to impart his opinions as well, given the circumstances that Malone led in a different manner. Adelman, by the way, really impressed with him. You know, we did Game 7 of the Clipper series, so we had a chance to meet with him prior to the game, obviously the other night. Really smart, and I think he has a good feel for this team. When we asked him about the biggest changes, he said, well, I used to be the guy that would go to the guy and tell him my opinion, and then it would get passed along potentially to the players. Now I'm the guy, and I've got to figure out messaging. I've got to figure out vocabulary. I've got to figure out tone. All of this is new at this level. So give him a great deal of credit for having a good understanding. And then, by the way, getting out of the way when the situation calls for it and allow Nikola Jokic to do what he does and impart knowledge and also passion, because that's what I saw in the clip as well.
The Russell Westbrook experience, how would you describe it? I'm always a nervous Nelly when it comes to Westbrook. I'm so glad he dished it and gave it up to AG for that three. But how do you describe just the history and now, of course, with the Nuggets this season and in this postseason, the Russell Westbrook experience?
Yeah, it's really funny because I think how you're viewed in this league evolves based on where you are in your career, based on what's expected of you on the current team that you're on. And with Russell Westbrook, we've run the whole gamut, haven't we? The guy was a force coming out of UCLA. You could tell right away, this guy just plays really hard,
right,
and he makes things happen. He then develops into a perennial all-star, eventually an MVP, historic in the triple-doubles that he was recording, to the point where he was recording them over the course of a season that was really unheard of in the NBA. And he was impacting winning. He was playing on winning teams. Well, at the end of his tenure with OKC, they had decided, okay, it's run its course. And that began this second chapter for him, where he was still putting up really good numbers with Houston and with Washington, but he was not impacting winning in the same way. So I think the way he was perceived and seen around the league was, he's on the downside now. He then takes on a completely different role. He recognizes that he's at a different stage of his career, but his standard is still really high. I think when he looks in the mirror, he still sees an MVP, and maybe he doesn't see what everybody else around the league may see. So I think people counted him out with the Lakers, with the Clippers, and the resurgence and the revitalization of his career with Denver. He just seems to fit perfectly what they need. He just makes things happen. He comes in, not always positive, but always with a purpose. And you can just tell the respect level that the guys have for him. And currently, this iteration, guys, I know it's a roller coaster ride, but he's making more good things happen than negative things for Denver. And it is translating into winning. Him, Aaron Gordon, we can go on and on. they're not here without them. The others, Christian Brown, the others have played such a large role in this version of the Nuggets.
Fantastic. And making things happen is what you do, Ian. We appreciate your time. One final one, super quick, because I have to. It's about Sean Payton. It's about the Denver Broncos, and it's about Bo Nix. I had to. Is this the year they close the gap? Is Bo Nix the guy? Like, just give us a little Broncos love before we're done here today, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, just really impressed with how he carried himself throughout the season. Obviously, the connection between Peyton and Nix, you could feel the trust level. I had them early, had them in that Jets game early in the season when Peyton, in our production meeting, basically went on and on to say, no. This guy's the guy, and we know it. And it was still when the stats weren't backing up all of the plaudits. And if you remember that game, it was a brutal day in the Northeast, and the Jets end up missing a field goal. That probably was the end of Robert Saleh. He lasted a few more weeks, but that was the beginning of the end of the unraveling for the Jets. And for the Broncos, it was really a starting point. And I just saw a confident quarterback. I think there's a belief within that team, and there's certainly a belief with Sean Payton that the guy knows how to win, knows how to run a program. He's a problem solver. He'll figure it out. He'll do it in his way. By the way, he's not going to change for anybody. He's going to do it the way that he does it. So I would tell you that it's a lot of positive energy in the offseason from a national perspective with Denver that they can take the next step.
Well, as I always like to say, it is a good time to be a Denver sports fan. You've got the Nuggets. I know the Avs just lost, but the Broncos are on the up and up, and Coach Prime up there in Boulder. And then, of course, there's the Rockies. But Ian Eagle, our guest, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time. Loved your call last night. Should be an interesting rest of the series between Denver and OKC. We'll do it again soon, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate it. Excited and enjoy.